Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition, I should say the first edition of a pre-race predictions video on the channel today. And this is going to be an interesting one to say the least because it is the Busch Light Clash Sunday afternoon at the LA Memorial Coliseum. I mean, this is a race that I don't think any of us can really predict what all is going to go down, but what we can predict is that it should be a spectacle by the eyes. And again, we'll just kind of have to see how this plays off. We're going to go through these predictions in today's live stream about as best as we possibly can. Obviously, there's no other track record for races at this racetrack. Very minimal practice time. Each driver only had 8 minutes of practice yesterday before their 2-lap qualifying session, so not a lot of track data to go off of, but I tried to pull as much statistical analysis going into these predictions today as I possibly could. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content as we're about to get into this one. Going to be doing pre-race live streams for the races I will be doing the live commentary for this year, just like today's race with the Busch Clash, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, top of the next hour, where we'll be commentating, or I will be commentating the qualifying races, the heat races, and the last chance races back to back. Then we'll take a little break and come back for the main event at 6 p.m. later on tonight. So, Ashton GR6R6, thanks for joining into the chat first. And yes, Ashton, I agree with you. It's either going to be really good or really bad. I think with it being the very first race, I think most people are generally going to be happy with what's going to be the outcome in this one. You're going to see some bumping and running. We saw it in practice yesterday, and guys weren't even trying to hit each other because it was just practice. I don't think that local short tracks have as much horsepower in these stock cars or in their stock cars or late model or modified series on a local quarter-mile short track compared to what these Cup cars do. So I think the ability to try and get the cars to slow down the way they want to into the corner is probably a lot harder. Getting back on the gas is probably got to be a lot more touchier, I'm assuming. I've never driven a stock car, but I would have to imagine that that would be the case. You were definitely seeing some cars slide around a lot yesterday. The track was taking rubber pretty quickly. It was obvious that the drivers who were going out in group practice A were a lot slower than the guys who were going out in the last group practice before qualifying would eventually presume. So practice times, you don't want to completely go off of those, but if they were slow in practice and in qualifying, I think that is a concern for some drivers, as we'll see here in a little bit. I think we're going to start off with the spotlight drivers. Usually I talk about the drivers that I don't think will run well, but I want to talk about the drivers who I think will run well, or drivers to look out for in today's race. And then we'll talk about each heat race individually, who I think will eventually make it into the 23-man main event tonight at 6, and who might have to race their way in or potentially get upset and not even make the main show later on tonight. So let's do that first. And we're going to start off with, again, the ones to watch. So the ones to watch here today, we have Kyle Busch. Let me get my camera. No, that's not working out too well. Hang on. You guys can't see my face anymore. You know, I thought I had this perfectly ready to go, but I guess I didn't. Okay, so the drivers to watch out for. Here is the statistical analysis of the 4 drivers I think you should watch out. 2 drivers who I think are going to be competitors for the championship ultimately, and then 2 somewhat dark horse drivers is what I went with. We're going to start off with Kyle Busch. I think he is the odds-on favorite today. He is my pick to win today's race. Usually, again, I save that for last, but I think he's the most obvious one. He has 16 career short track victories in the NASCAR Cup Series, by far the most of any current driver. Tied for second is his brother Kurt Busch and Denny Hamlin with 10, and Kurt Busch's last win wasn't since 2017, so it's been 4 years since he has won on a short track. That was the Bristol Night Race that year. So Kyle Busch, far and away the best short track driver in NASCAR. He qualified first yesterday. That means he will be starting first in heat race number 1. If he wins that heat race, he will be on the pole for the main event. He was also 5th in Clash practice, and he wasn't even in the final group to go out and practice. His Martinsville stats, and I wanted to bring in the Martinsville stats because this is probably the closest short track we have to Martinsville, considering that Martinsville is a half-mile longer in length. It is very flat, just like this LA Coliseum short track, and very tight turns. There will be a lot of bumping and running going on. Kyle Busch has led 939 laps in the last 13 Martinsville races combined. In those same 13 races, he has 11 top 10s, 9 top 5s, 6 top 3s, and 2 wins. So Kyle Busch, again, hands-on favorite today. He's starting up in front. I think track position is going to mean a lot. So if he wins this first heat race, it's going to be tough to pass him. Yes, you could get dumped and bumped and ran on at the end of the race. That's certainly possible. I'm sure we'll see a decent amount of cautions in today's race as well with how tight the racetrack is. I don't think we're going to see a ton of cautions, but I think it'll be kind of sporadically through. I think the start of the race is going to be maybe a little bit more tame, or the start of the day in the heat races, and then as we get closer to checkered flag in the main event, that's where you're going to really see the aggression pick up. Again, this is also the first race of the next gen cars, and there's a shortage of supply for a lot of teams right now, so they might not be too aggressive too early, but if they have a shot to win late, I think that you'll see that same aggressiveness you would usually see in recent years on short tracks. Chase Elliott is the next driver I have for a must-have, or a driver that I think is going to contend for the win tonight. He was fastest in the Busch Class practice, and he qualified 7th, so there is consistency with the speed there. That means he will be starting 2nd in heat race number 3. He won the 2020 Bristol All-Star race, and the reason why I say that, I know Bristol is a lot different from this as far as the short track purposes go, but that was a short and condensed race. This is a short and condensed race as well, so I think that does correlate with one another, and that was the only really short and condensed race we've seen in an exhibition race in recent years in NASCAR, was the Bristol All-Star race in 2020, so look out for Elliott there. Also, if you want to go back to the Martinsville stats like I did with Kyle Busch, in the last 6 Martinsville starts for Chase Elliott, he has led a combined 575 laps, 4 top 5s, and 3 top 2s, so if there is going to be somebody to compete with Kyle Busch for the win today, I do think it'll be Chase Elliott, but again, my pick overall is Kyle Busch. Patricia Times, welcome into the stream as well. I want to see you guys down in the chat. What do you think about the predictions for the drivers who I have that are going to at least compete for the win tonight? I think that that's a pretty safe pick. Obviously, they could get dumped in the heat race and not even make it to the main event. That is perfectly possible, but I do feel confident with those picks. If you are a betting person, those are probably the 2 highest that I would go with. I know Kyle Busch is 5-1 odds. He is the favorite. I don't know what the odds are on Chase Elliott, but I would assume he's got to be one of the favorites. If he's not, then that may be a smarter pick potentially as well. Patricia thinks that Justin Haley will win. That is a bold prediction right there. Haley obviously has ran in the Cup Series a lot. This is a new car, so I wouldn't really correlate that. He qualified really well. He qualified 3rd, so he'll be on the pole in heat race number 3. That's actually quite surprising, to be completely honest. I'll talk more about him in a little bit. We'll go into my drivers to watch again, but the 2 drivers who are maybe dark horse picks. So dark horse, I pretty much correlate that with drivers that are consistently right around 10th or worse in points, or so obviously that could change throughout the course of the season. Like last year, Byron wasn't really a dark horse once we got later into the year because he was consistently top 5 in the regular season standings. So that'll probably change, but he does only have 2 career wins, so at least for the start of this season, I'll have him as a dark horse. And in today's race, I think Byron is a dark horse. He's got 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s in his last 5 Martinsville starts, so he's not quite, he's very consistent in those recent races, but he's not up in the very front leading a lot of laps like, say, Kyle Busch or Chase Elliott have been, but he is finishing well, so I do think that will transpire into this race. I think he'll have a good finish. I think he's an easy lock to make the main event, and I say at bare minimum Byron gets a top 10 today. He was 3rd in the Bristol Fall race last year. That's his best finish on a short track recently. He also, again, had a great run at Martinsville in the fall as well, and finished top 10 there. So I do think that there is some recent short track success going for Byron's way. I think he's an underrated short track racer. I don't think he's, great like, say, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr. I don't think he's quite on that level, but I think he is in the next tier, like a B tier level short track racer right now in the Cup Series. iRacing is really the only way anybody could get practice on this track. I'm sure he's been doing a lot of that. That's where he got his career started up. So I think that William Byron is going to be a potential dark horse pick today. I think his odds are like 18-1, which is quite surprising considering. Well, I guess it's not surprising in the sense that I do think he does have good statistics, but people don't actually look at him. And I think a lot of that is because he's only got 2 career wins. This guy's an even bigger dark horse, at least coming into the weekend. Based off of qualifying practice, the odds might have changed with this guy, But Tyler Reddick qualified second yesterday, so he'll be on the pole in heat race number 2, and he was also 6th in practice. He was, I believe, in that final group to go out of practice, but again, ran second in qualifying, so he had a very good lap there. Very close to the pole on Kyle Busch, but he didn't quite get it. Overall, obviously, if he wins that heat race, he'll be starting outside of the front row of the main event. He doesn't have a win in the Cup Series in his career, but he does have at least experience with racing in the shorter races. Of course, he made it to the All-Star race last year and actually had to race his way in from the shootout, or I guess the whatever they call that now, before the, do they still call it the shootout before the All-Star race, the showdown? I think it's the showdown. Anyway, he ended up racing his way in through that last year. If I'm not mistaken, I think he did it the year before as well at Bristol. So he's got experience racing his way into the main event. I don't think that'll be an issue considering the heat races are only 25 laps, and on this track that's going to fly by, it's literally only going to be like 5 minutes or less per heat race, as long as it stays green, of course. But Tyler Reddick, easy lock to make the race. I think at bare minimum he gets a top 10. It's pretty obvious, in my opinion. I mean, yes, you have some better drivers, I think, that are starting further back that could definitely race their way up forward throughout the course of the night, get a better starting position for the main event. The main event's 150 laps, so they could race their way up throughout the course of that race. At Reddick, I don't think is going to get a top 5, but I do think he will get a top 10 at the very least tonight and have a good performance to start off his 2022 season. Joshua Rumsey, welcome to the stream. Drivers to watch are Almirola, Preece, and Cody Ware. Well, okay, so I saw some people freaking out about Cody Ware up there in the practice times yesterday. He was in the very first group yesterday when the rubber was, or sorry, he was in the last group. Wasn't he in the, yes, he was in the last group. So his practice times were a lot better than some of these all-star like drivers, former champion contender drivers that were in the first session, because there was so much more rubber laid down. Again, this is not an actual legitimate NASCAR racetrack. It has never been raced on before, so there was literally zero rubber laid down on the racetrack going into practice yesterday. So the lap times from the guys that were in Group A were way slower than the guys that were in that fourth group that went out last. So that's why qualifying is maybe a little bit better to look off of, because the rubber was laid down for everybody before going into qualifying. But if there's a correlation between qualifying and practice as far as being slow in both or being fast in both, like we already mentioned with the guys who were fast in both, then that's where I would hit home with that. So I wouldn't say Cody Ware. Ryan Preece is an interesting one. He's a great short track racer. He didn't qualify as well as I thought he would yesterday, but I think if Preece makes it to the main event in a Rick Ware racing car, that's a win for him. I think he is probably going to end up having to do it in the last chance race. I don't think he'll get there in the heat because he starts a little bit further back. But I do think he can make it into the main event today. And again, in a Rick Ware racing car, that is going to be all Preece needs to do to impress me, at least, here today. Eric Almirola, that's another interesting one. I don't think he qualified too well, if I remember correctly. Let me look here just to make sure. Actually, I'll come back to him in a little bit. But those are the drivers that you have to watch out for in today's race. 16 people watching already, and the race hasn't even started yet. We're going to end the stream about 2:45 so I can set up everything I need to for the actual live commentary of the heat race. Again, that will be on a separate stream. But like, share, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. If you are new, well, even if you're not new, smash that like button. Helps me out a ton. Preece could win because of his short track background at Stafford. He could, but at the same time, I don't think it's any different than him running for JTG Doherty the last couple of years, and he didn't really, like, he ran well in the short tracks, but he never competed for a win. So although it could happen, because you never know, I just don't see it happen, especially with the Rick Ware racing car. I know there's an alliance there. I don't see them being any better than JTG Doherty was last year, to be completely honest. So for Preece in this race, again, it's a win if he makes it to the main event. He's starting further back. It's going to hurt his chances of winning the race overall. If he can win overall, that puts Ryan Preece on the map of he's probably already got the right at Storehouse Racing here at the end of 2022, but that all but locks it in. Drivers to watch are Justin Haley and AJ Allmendinger. Welcome also Tyler Burbeck and Billy Kramer. Yes, those guys are definitely... Haley qualified really well I think Allmendinger starts 5th in his heat. So we'll see how he could do. He's not really known for being a great short track racer, but if there's one short track he has ran well at in the past, it is Martinsville. He's a great road course racer. Martinsville is kind of the closest short track to a road course in the fact that sometimes they would shift, especially even with the Gen 6 cars, shift from 4th to 3rd in the Cup Series with the horsepower and everything. And he had some good runs. I think he has 2 second-place finishes at Martinsville in the Cup Series. So AJ wouldn't be a bad pick to look out for either. But based on his practice and qualifying times, he was kind of mid-pack. He gets a top 10 tonight. That's a win. Craig Franklin, welcome to the stream. What do I expect from 22? You talk about the year 22 or Joey Logano? Joey Logano, I don't really know about. He was kind of like right in the middle, too. He wasn't in the top 10 in qualifying or practice, but he wasn't all the way at the back like some of these former champions were, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I don't really know what to expect out of Logano in this one. He's got a couple short track wins in recent years, Martinsville probably being one of his better short tracks, so I think that plays into his favor today. I think he makes the main event, but maybe gets probably get a top 10. I think he'll have a quiet but good day. I don't think he's going to get talked about a lot unless he ruffles some feathers, which could happen. It could happen. Okay, you were talking about Joey. Well, good thing I was talking about Joey then. Do you expect Briscoe to do well? Briscoe was good in practice yesterday, but again, he was out there a little bit later. And so I don't want to correlate that with how he did in qualifying because he didn't qualify the greatest, especially compared to some of his teammates. Harvick qualified better. Even Cole Custer did great in qualifying yesterday. I think Custer looked like the best SHR car yesterday between practice and qualifying combined, which surprised me, but I do think that Briscoe is definitely one to look out for, but not like in the sense that I think he's going to have a great day guaranteed like these other 4 drivers I just talked about. Truex struggled in qualifying, yeah. So, well, that'll be the great transition here. Let's talk about the drivers that you should watch for, but not in a good way. One's not to watch as far as competing for the win goes because this is interesting. Martin Truex Jr., we'll talk about it first, but he got brought up in the chat first, was terrible. He was nowhere close to any other Toyotas in qualifying and practice, whether it was Joe Gibbs Racing. Well, I guess Kurt Busch struggled yesterday too, which surprised me. Bubba Wallace outran him considerably yesterday, and Wallace is a pretty good short track racer, but so is Kurt Busch. So I thought that was a little bit weird. I think that both Truex and Kurt Busch are really great short track racers, so I think they're going to get it dialed in eventually. But I'm a little more worried about Martin Truex Jr. because he was really, really slow in practice. Like, he was outstandingly slow. You can see right here, 30th in practice, 34th in qualifying. So that means he will be starting last in heat race number 2. I don't think he gets in from the heat race. I don't think Truex gets his way into the top 4. Again, the top 4 from each heat make it, and then the top 3 from each last chance race make it. I think his goal, he's got to finish 6th or better in the heat race so he can have a good starting spot for the last chance race. I think Truex is in danger of missing the show tonight. If he does make it in, I think he finishes outside the top 10 with ease. And that is saying something because he has been a great short track racer in recent years. He has 3 wins at Richmond and, 3 at Martinsville in the last 4 seasons? So, Truex is just a really weird one. Kurt Busch went out early in qualifying, less rubber on the track. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to throw Kurt Busch in the not to watch. Because I do think Kurt Busch could turn it around. But it's weird, though, because Bubba Wallace was out a little earlier in qualifying because he didn't practice well, and he was out early in practice. So that's why he didn't practice well, but he qualified a lot better than Kurt Busch did. So I don't... Yeah, Kurt Busch is a really weird one. I wanted to stay away from him because I really don't know what to expect out of him today. Clayton Hamilton, welcome to the stream. Let's go Briscoe. He's rooting for the young guy from the great state of Indiana. Jesus Manuel Ortiz, welcome to the stream. Kevin Harvick and Alex Bowman going to win this season. I do think so. I think Harvick finds his way back to victory lane later in the year. I have him winning at New Hampshire, actually, in my full season predictions. I predicted every race this season. Go check out that video. Not now. You'll probably have to wait till later tonight because we're going to have a lot of action here over the next few hours. But, yeah, I would say he'll go to victory lane. I do have Bowman winning a couple times. I don't think he's going to win as many races as he did last year, but I do have him winning a couple. He had 4 wins last year, and he kind of looked into 3 of them. Which a win's a win. I'm not going to take that away from him by any means. I say that all the time. But he wasn't consistent compared to the other 3 Hendrick cars. I think he's the 4th best Hendrick driver after last season. I think Byron outran him all year long. Unfortunately, Byron had one bad race in the round of 12 of the playoffs that knocked him out earlier than the 48. Actually, no, never. The 48 was eliminated too. Yeah, so they both got eliminated in the round of 12. But I do think that Byron had a good chance to go to the round of 8. Probably should have been there. I mean, he was top 5 in regular season all season long. I think he finished 4th in regular season standings, and he ended up getting knocked out in the round of 12. So that was a bit of an upset for him in a bad way. Feel like Larson could run well. Yeah, Larson's an interesting one too. He's not the greatest short track racer. I know he won at Bristol last year. He's good at Bristol, okay? I will say he is really good at Bristol. He has a win at Richmond. Martinsville is probably one of his worst ovals that isn't a super speedway. He ran the back half of the top 10 in both races last year. I think a lot of that is just Hendrick Motorsports equipment, and we know Hendrick's great at Martinsville, but I just don't see Larson competing for the win today. I think Elliott is the favorite out of the Hendrick camp today. And I think Byron and Larson could be in the back half of the top 10 throughout the course of it. But, again, my pick is Kyle Busch to win. So we talked about Truex. I'm going to talk about RFK, Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing. They are ones not to watch today as far as... they'll be ones to watch to see if they make it into the main show because they were not good collectively, which is what scares me. It's a little different with 2311 because Kurt Busch wasn't great, but he went out early, and Bubba Wallace was better than him, so there's a little bit of inconsistencies there between the two of them as an organization. Same thing with Trackhouse. Chastain was terrible yesterday in qualifying and practice. He also went out early in practice, but he was terrible in qualifying, but then Daniel Suarez qualified in the top 10, so it's really weird between those two also. But Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, not off to a hot start 2022. Very, very early, obviously. I'm pumping the brakes on the season. I'm still leaving my season predictions the same. Keselowski will make the playoffs. But as far as today goes, Brad Keselowski was 33rd in practice, and he was 30th in qualifying. That means he'll be starting 8th in heat race number 2. His teammate Chris Buescher, better in practice and qualifying, but still outside the top 20, both 21st in practice, 27th in qualifying. Buescher will be starting 7th in heat race number 3. I think one of those two are going to miss the main event. I think Keselowski could miss it because he's a little bit further back in the field, so he's going to have to race his way a little bit quicker. I'm not sure how long the last chance races are. On NASCAR's website, they didn't say. I don't know if they're going to adjust it based on their timing constraints of how long the heat races take and how much time they have before the main event, especially with the performance acts they're having. So they might be why they haven't actually stated it. Is it 25 laps like the heat race? I would imagine it'd be a little bit longer, probably 50 laps if I had to guess. Usually when you go to a local dirt track or a local short track, that the last chance races are a little bit longer than the heat races. Like sometimes the last chance races will be like 12 laps, but the heat races are like 8 or like 15 for the last chance. So it might be 50 for the last chance races. 40, something like that. I would imagine it's a little bit longer, but whether it's the same or longer. Truex, Keselowski, they're going to be fun to watch trying to come from the back. But we'll see if they can actually make it in. They're in danger of missing it. I think Buescher could get in. I mean, he would only have to pick up, 5 positions from where he was? It's 50 laps? Okay, thank you. I kind of figured it was right around that 50-lap range. I do have the pre-race on, but I'm not listening to it, so I'm seeing Michael Waltrip talk to air, basically, right now. Or sounds like air. So I don't have it plugged in yet. I will for the races, so that way if there's some sort of mechanical issue or something, I can relate that to you guys when I'm doing the live commentary. So that's pretty much it. We don't have a whole lot more to talk about. We'll talk about the heat races. I'll talk about the favorites in each heat race. So we'll do that next. Alrighty. So we'll go to heat race number 1. Let's get it up there on the screen. That's too big. I'm too big. Should have just left it the way it was. My camera on OBS is being really weird right now. I'll just throw them all up there. What the heck? I didn't want to throw them all up right now. We'll talk about the heat races. Line them up here. We'll talk about heat races 1 and 2, and then we'll go to 3 and 4 after this. So heat races 1 and 2. Kyle Busch, of course, on the pole. Daniel Suarez outside of the front row in heat race number 1. Then you got Stenhouse and Blaney in row 2. Hamlin, Almirola row 3. McLeod, Gill in row 4. And then Chastain back in row 5. I think Chastain is another driver that is in danger of missing the feature. I think he is. He didn't look great in practice to qualify, but his teammate Suarez obviously has speed. So you would think Ross Chastain has speed. I would think that Chastain's a better short track racer than Suarez, personally. I would think that. So I think he can get up there. But you look at his heat. This is probably the most stacked heat race. Heat race number 1's got to be the most stacked. Because you got Kyle Busch, you got Denny Hamlin. Those are probably the 2 best short track racers right now. Ryan Blaney's been a very good driver at Martinsville. Martinsville is by far his best short track. He's got like 3 runner-up finishes there. So Blaney's going to be tough. Almirola won at New Hampshire last year. That's a flat track. And then Daniel Suarez has speed. Only 4 of those guys can race their way in. Stenhouse, I don't know what to think about him. He qualified pretty well. I mean, he was top 10 in qualifying, but can he keep that speed up? And he's another one, kind of like Logano and Chastain for that matter. You know, can they stay out of trouble? And honestly, Chastain being way in the back and knowing his aggressiveness, I would not be surprised if he accidentally dumped somebody in the heat race. He might get into the back of McLeod on the start. That is possible. That is certainly possible. Hey, they got Sheamus on NASCAR Race Hub. Or Race Day. Yeah, it's Race Day. My bad. If I had to pick the 4 that would make it in from the heat, in heat race number 1, I'd say Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin. I'm going to go with Stenhouse. I think Stenhouse gets in from the heat race. I feel like the inside has to be the preferred lane, right? The inside has to be the preferred lane on the restart here. So if the inside's the preferred lane, I can see Stenhouse getting to second right out of the gate. It's only 25 laps. I think Blaney and Hamlin could get around him. How far will it take? Like, how far back will Suarez drop before he can get to the bottom? Is going to be big. And then how much time is he going to have to get back to Stenhouse? And I think those 2 could be equal enough on pace that Stenhouse can hang on. As long as he, again, doesn't ruffle anybody's feathers and he just drives it smooth. I think he could bring it home. So those are the 4 I have advancing through Heat 1. Through Heat 2, yeah, Tyler Reddick and Cole Custer on the front row. Harrison Burton and Alex Bowman in row 2. Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon in row 3. Chase Briscoe, Brad Keselowski in row 4, and Martin Truex Jr. in the back. So you got the younger guys in the top half of the field, and then you got the back half of the field, excluding Briscoe. A couple former champs. Can you compare Martinsville to the Coliseum? Very briefly. You can't, it's not, I think they can correlate with one another in a way because of how flat it is. So that's why I took a lot of the Martinsville stats over other short track statistics. It'll be tough. I don't. Are they exactly the same though? No, because I'd almost say it's like a flat Richmond, the way it's curved on the front stretch. Well, it's curved all the way around the track, so both the back stretch and the front stretch at the Coliseum are almost similar to the front stretch at Richmond. Only difference is there's a lot more grip because it's new pavement, it's new asphalt. Richmond is very old surface. But the braking has to be similar. And it's a lot smaller in length. It's a half mile shorter, so I guess maybe it's a little less. I mean, this really is a unique short track. There is nothing else exactly like it, but I think Martinsville's probably the closest short track. Matt Hunter, welcome to the stream. New to the chat, man to beat is Kyle Busch. Although rooting for Reddick, it's one of the first-time winners that we'll see this year alongside Briscoe and Chastain. Matt, I agree with you 100%. I think Kyle Busch is the guy to beat tonight. He's my pick to win. I think Tyler Reddick can have a great run. I mentioned that bare minimum he's getting the top 10 today with his starting position. Bare minimum. I think he does advance his way in through this heat race. I think he can win this. Honestly, I think he will win this heat race. The 4 I have from this heat race would be Reddick. Go with Bowman. I don't trust Custer. Even though he looked better than any other SHR car. Bubba Wallace is starting up there enough, and he's on the inside. I think he can get to about third on the start. He's aggressive enough. I think he can hang on. So I'm going to go Reddick, Bowman, Wallace. I don't think 25 laps is enough for Keselowski and Truex to get up there. Maybe Briscoe. Briscoe's on the inside, too. I'll go Reddick, Bowman, Wallace, Briscoe for Heat 2. Those will be the 4 I have going into the heat from that one. I'll talk about the last chance races when we get closer to the night. But anyway, to go back to Matt Hunter's comment, in the chat, was Briscoe, Chastain, Cindric, first career wins. In my preseason predictions that uploaded a couple days ago, I have all 3 of those guys getting their first career win this year. I think that Briscoe's going to win at the Indianapolis road course. I think that Cindric's going to win at least one road course as well. Preferably, I had him winning at Road America. And I do have Reddick winning. I have him pointing his way into the playoffs. And I have him getting eliminated in the round of 12, but I do have him picking up his first career win at Homestead at the end of the year. I think he'll be a non-playoff driver to win a playoff race like we've seen a lot in this current format, that it seems to happen in the round of 12, round of 8. Usually if it's in the round of 12, it's at Talladega, and then the round of 8, it kind of happens. You know, like we saw with Kyle Busch in 2020 at Texas. We've seen it at Martinsville a couple times. Homestead's new to the round of 8. I think Reddick can win there. Hot take, Stenhouse gets dumped by Hamlin. They do start right behind each other in row 2 and 3. They'll be starting 3rd, 5th. Think it's going to happen off the start, Tyler? Oh, jeez. Yeah, so those are my 8, I guess, from those 2 heat races. Again, we'll talk about the last chance race when we actually get the lineup for the last chance race. But those are the 4 from those heat. So now we'll talk about heat race 3 and 4. Minimize it here. Alrighty. There we go. Heat races 3 and 4. 4 drivers I have advancing through these 2 heat races. Well, first off, in heat race number 3, we have Justin Haley and Chase Elliott on the front row. William Byron, Christopher Bell in row 2. Allmendinger and Harvick in row 3. Buescher, LaJoie, row 4. Cody Ware in 9th. Honestly, this one I think is probably the easiest to pick, the 4. Elliott is one of the favorites to win, in my opinion. I think he gets at least a top 10 at the bare minimum tonight, but I think he easily gets in. William Byron, I think he gets in. I'm going to say Haley and Allmendinger get in. I think they'll work together. I think they will work together to get in through this heat race. They'll find a way. I think Allmendinger is going to try to hold everybody else back like Dale in the 500 with Haley in front of him. I think they go third and fourth in this heat. I think Elliott or Byron win the heat. Byron might win the heat because Elliott might get stacked up behind him. And Byron and Elliott get around Haley. Allmendinger lets him in line and holds the rest back. That's how I see this heat race going. That's if I called that identical or perfectly. If I called that perfectly, Haley gets a good jump on the start. Byron gets in front of Elliott. Elliott drops in line behind Byron. Byron gets underneath the 31 of Haley a couple laps in, or however many laps in he does. The Hendrick cars go through. Allmendinger's lined up in fourth. He kind of lets Haley in line. And then Allmendinger holds back Harvick, Buescher, LaJoie, and Ware. That's how I see this heat race going. Does anybody else agree? You got Allmendinger advancing through the last chance qualifier. I think he's in a good spot. Like, they take the top four. Him starting on the inside, he could definitely get by Bell on the start. And I think he can hold off Harvick and Bell. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy to hold those two back, but I think he can. Bell's a younger driver. He may get aggressive and put the bumper to Allmendinger. But Allmendinger is not a pushover either, though, so I don't think that's going to... That might not end well. Harvick might just get by both of them because of it. Going with Byron from a former Jeff Gordon fan to win the heat. I think he can. I think it's either going to be Byron or Elliott. It's only 25 laps. I think Byron gets by Elliott on the start. I don't think Elliott's going to race him too hard. If those two are 1-2 and they're pulling away, I don't think Elliott's going to race him hard to win the heat. It's not worth it. It's not worth racing hard and having the rest of them catch up. Especially if colleague is 3 and 4, and they have Harvick and Buescher riding on their coattails and Bell. It's pretty much between those guys. What is a fuel window for the main event? Well, there's a 7. So local short tracks, because this is a quarter mile. There's no live pit stops. It's too small. No live pit stops. It's too small for there to be live pit stops. So there's a break at lap 75 to refuel the race cars, refuel the cars, and make minor adjustments. It'll probably be about a 10-minute break at lap 75. But that's just like any local short track race. So fuel is not an issue tonight. That's why they haven't really talked about it all week. Refuel, change tires, and make any minor adjustments they can for that 10 minutes. We've seen it in the All-Star race in years past as well. Kind of do the same thing in between some segments. Well, the last heat race we have to talk about before I get out of here and get everything set up for the heat races at 3 so we can go live then, is heat race number 4. Joey Logano and Kyle Larson on the front row. Michael McDowell, Landon Castle, and Preston qualifying enough to line up row 2 in heat 4. Then you have Cindric and Eric Jones, Ryan Preece and Kurt Busch, and Ty Dillon. Heat race number 4. This is probably the hardest one to predict. I think it's easy to predict that Logano and Larson are going to be able to make it in. There's a lot of underdogs in this heat, and 2 more are going to make their way in through this heat. Does Kurt Busch race his way around the young guys? Does he have enough time starting on the last car on the outside? Ty Dillon will probably get around him on the start. So Kurt's literally going to have to go from probably last place to the top 4 in 25 laps on a quarter-mile short track. That's going to be tough, depending on how aggressive he is with it. I think he can get in through the last chance race. I don't think he gets in through the heat. Kurt Busch, at least. I think Cindric gets in. I want to say Eric Jones, but I don't know how far back he's going to... I'll go Ryan Preece. I think I'll go Preece. I think I'll go Logano, Larson, Cindric, and Preece make it through this heat. Preece is on the inside. I think he could get to 4th off the start. He's got to hold back McDowell and Castle. I think Kurt Busch will be too far back to catch him, and Eric Jones will probably be back there with Kurt Busch off the start. So that's kind of my pick there. You have Austin Dillon winning his second Daytona 500. That's a bold prediction. He could do it, but it's bold. Ashton's got Logano, Larson, Cindric, and Kurt Busch in Heat 4. I just think Kurt Busch is too far back. I just don't think there's enough time. I think he can get in through the last chance race, because if you got to figure the guys that finish like 5th and 6th in their heats, they're going to have better starting positions for their last chance race, and those are going to be the guys that will be starting up front in the last chance race and have a better chance to make it through there. All right, so we have a few more minutes here. Comment down below any other predictions, advice you guys want. We're not really into the fantasy portion of the season right now. We're not in the fantasy portion of the year. So there's not really any fantasy advice, but maybe drivers you want to spotlight that I haven't talked about much that we could talk about right here, right now. We got a couple more minutes. 2:45. I have to end the stream, though, so I can get the raw feed up and set all that stuff up for live scoring when I'm doing the commentary for the heats. Kyle Larson fan, welcome to the stream as well. Happy NASCAR is officially back. I am too. I was ecstatic pretty much last night when I got home from work and this morning. Like, yes, NASCAR is back. Oh, Dark Crypto, welcome to the stream. I don't think I called you out earlier. I'd see you in the chat. I'm looking back in the chat to see if there were any other questions. BJ McLeod was surprisingly competitive yesterday. Maybe in practice. I mean, in the heat race, he's starting 7th. So, I mean, that's the back half of the heat. I don't think he gets it. If he gets into the main event tonight, great for Live Fast and that team. That'd be a win. Yeah, those backmarker cars like that, for any Rick Ware car, you know, even if it is Priest, still a Rick Ware car. Any Rick Ware car that could make it into the 23-man main event tonight, there you go. Could Michigan drive like a super speedway if something weird happens with the racing at Michigan? No. Not with the package they're going to have this year, at least. They had a better chance of that with the 550 package than what they will with this package this year. More horsepower. They're going to have to lift a little bit more in the corners. The straightaway speeds are going to be up compared to where they were last year, so hence they'll have to lift more in the corners. It'll be right back to the fastest track in NASCAR again, though. The 550 package, it lost that title, but now they have the title back. There are a lot of fans outside the racetrack right now. There's not that many in the grandstands. Looking at the overhead shot, they better hurry up and get in their seats. I don't think they realize the heat race is starting in like 15 minutes. Hopefully they didn't open the gates too late. How many Kyle Larson gonna get in 2022? I have him winning 5 races. I miscounted on the predictions video. I have him winning 5 this year. I have him making it to the championship 4. I think he wins 5. That's just my prediction. Could he go out there and win 10 again? Most certainly he can. But for the sake of trying to predict every race correctly, I didn't want to take Larson that many times. And then, well, then again, I guess if I would have predicted the right races he won, then it would have worked. But I was trying to think a little bit outside the box while still being right next to the box, I guess you would say. I was on the outside of it, but I had my ear pressed against it, trying to get in when it came to my full season predictions. 15 likes. Thank you, everybody, for hitting the like button. Definitely the most viewed pre-race stream we've had ever on the channel. Well, usually I don't. I streamed it a couple times last year. I'll be streaming the pre-race for every race I do live commentary for this season. Mirador Fan NASCAR 22, welcome to the stream. Again, we'll be ending the stream within, honestly, the next few seconds so I can get everything set up for the live commentary. So, as I sign off, like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. We'll be doing live commentary today, of course, so that's why we're doing the live stream with the pre-race. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. less than 15 minutes away. Live commentary, live stream will start of the heat races. The last chance qualifiers will be in there. Driver interviews will be in there in between races and all that. So won't want to miss that. And then I will be doing live commentary at 6 p.m. later tonight for the main event. We'll probably have a break between the two, so those will be two separate streams. Unless it runs long, that they end up running into one another, but I doubt that that's going to happen. Westman KP14, welcome to the stream as well. So I will see you guys top of the hour. Another stream, it's already up on the channel. You can go into the chat and wait, and I will be there very soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.